والدكتورة إيناس بروفيسور إيناس بيتها.
We start in 2 minutes, huh?
Okay.
Sorry, I was just preparing my coffee.
Can you see my slides, please?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I think we can start. Are you okay, Professor Hani?
Gamal is asking if there is another link. Lesi Shai, could you check that the link with him is the same, or he's going to another link, please?
No, he can just join that link, set the same link.
I told him this. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Can we start, Professor Hani?
Yes, please go on.
Okay. So good afternoon, everyone. At first, I would like to thank you for accepting our invitation. As the president of the Afghan Transplantation Committee, I have the honor and pleasure to inaugurate the first webinar of our committee focusing on kidney transplantation in North Africa, current situation and challenges. This webinar is the first in a series of webinars planned in the coming months, some of which will be dedicated to kidney transplantation in various regions of Africa. Our committee, Afghan Transplant Committee, with its new composition, began its activities in March 2024. Actually, it includes 31 members representing 19 countries in the 5 Afghan regions of our continent. We are currently working on 6 projects in parallel, each led by a subcommittee, webinar subcommittee, of course, but also guidelines subcommittee, research subcommittee, survey subcommittee, literature monitoring subcommittee, and therapeutic patient education subcommittee. For webinar subcommittees is coordinated by Professor Gamal Saadi from Egypt and Dr. Mariam Khabar from Tunisia. Our webinar today will be moderated by 3 eminent nephrologists. Professor Mohammed Hani Hafiz, Emeritus Professor of Medicine and Nephrology at Cairo University, President of African Association of Nephrology, AFRAN, Past President of Egyptian Society of Nephrology and Transplantation, Chief of Nephrology Councils of Egyptian and Arab Boards, Regional Council of Declaration of Istanbul, Secretary General of MISOT, and co-chair of the 2025 Afghan Congress. The second moderator of our webinar today is Professor Azdin Abdelrahim. He is Professor of Nephrology at Faculty of Medicine of Tunis. He is head of the Department of Nephrology and Internal Medicine at Charnikol Hospital of Tunis, President of the Kidney Transplant Committee at Tunisian National Center for the Promotion of Organ Transplantation, CNPTO, Fellow of the American National Kidney Foundation, member of Africa Regional Boards of International Society of Nephrology, and co-chair with Professor Hani Hafez of the 2025 Afran Congress that will be held in Tunisia. And our third moderator is Professor Ines Lawed. She is Professor of Nephrology at Qadi Ayad University in Marrakesh, Head of Department of Nephrology, Hemodialysis and Kidney Transplantation at the University Hospital Mohammed VI in Marrakesh, President of the College of Nephrologists of Marrakesh, President of Nephrology University Group, and member of the Moroccan Society of Nephrology and many other international societies. I now hand over to our estimated moderator to begin the webinar.
Good morning. I think it is, I should present, or it is the first presenter now?
Yes.
You represent the first presenter.
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's a great honor to be with you today in this very important event carried by Afran, and it is my personal honor to present Professor Intisar Hadiyah. Professor Intisar Hadiyah has a very long CV. She's a professor of nephrology in Morocco, author, lecturer, and reviewer for several national and international indexed medical journals. She holds a PhD in social responsibility in health since 2021. She is currently a full professor of nephrology at the Faculty of Medicine and Pharmacy, Mohammed Premier University, Oujouda, Morocco, and president of Kidney Failure Patient Support Association in Eastern Morocco since 2022. She authored with her team more than 50 scientific articles related to her fields of interest. Moreover, she recently published a book about social responsibility in health in the African continent in French, waiting to be translated in English very soon. Professor Intisar Hadiyah, please. She will give us the status of Morocco.
Thank you. So I'm going to share my screen. Is it okay? Do you see my slides?
Yes. Yes, it's okay.
Yes.
Okay, so
Okay.
thank you, Professor Hani, for this kind introduction. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored and delighted to take part to this very important event, the Afran webinar dedicated to the current situation and challenges of kidney transplantation in North Africa. Of course, in my presentation, I will be focusing on the situation and the current standpoint in my country, Morocco. And let me first thank the organizing committee, of course, for inviting me to present and share our experience. And I would like also to express my deepest gratitude to my colleagues, the Moroccan colleagues and professors, who provided me with the recent updated data that I'm going to share with you throughout this presentation. So as you know, kidney transplantation is the best kidney replacement therapy, as it offers several advantages to the patients, the main ones being the decrease of cardiovascular morbidity and mortality. It offers a better survival and quality of life to the patients and benefits for public health economics, of course. So in Morocco, the laws and the legal framework governing donation and transplantation was adopted and established in 1999. But our activity remains broadly below our expectations, as practitioners, line ministries, and also the population, especially ESKD patients and their families. There are many obstacles that have been identified, and they remain numerous, of course, but luckily they're not insurmountable. So let's take a look to to the Moroccan law regarding donation and transplantation, which is quite similar to the ones in various Maghreb countries. They take up the main principles of the French law Caillavet of 1976 and the subsequent revision of bioethics laws of 1994, with an important role for the family of the deceased in the case of brain dead donors. So the principles that are announced in this legal framework are as follows. Donation must be free with a prior free informed consent of the donor, the respect of anonymity and confidentiality of the collected information in the case of brain dead donors, and of course, the recipient's information on the expected results is also mandatory. So throughout the years and in the last 20 years, several institutions have been accredited for the activity of transplantation. These are public university hospitals, as the private sector is not allowed to perform organ or tissue procurement, but only there are some clinics that are allowed to perform tissue transplantation for bone marrow, corneum, for example, under very strict and rigorous condition and policies. Who is authorized to donate in our country? Well, the parents of the patient, his sons or daughters, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, and their children aged more than 18. And of course, the spouse is also authorized to donate with the condition that the marriage is effectively contracted for at least 1 year. Now, these are very important numbers. It's the number of patients that are treated by kidney replacement therapy currently in our country. The main technique that is used is HD, with almost 40,000 patients undergoing hemodialysis. The rates of patients under PD is quite modest compared to HD, with 275 patients only. And kidney transplantation accounts for 710 patients that have benefited from transplants. Most of them are from living donor. It's around 600 patients. 80 were from brain dead donors, and we have 67 pediatric transplantations. Here is the distribution of our national program. What you see in red is the transplantation from living donor, what is in blue is the brain dead, and what is in green is the pediatric transplants. And as you see, there is an increase that was sustained and steady from 2012, with a peak in 2014 and 16 also, but then there is an abrupt decrease in 2020 and 2021 because of the pandemics. But luckily, the activity did resume after 2022. Let's take a look at the main features of our recipients, where they're mainly young, with a mean age of 33 years, a male predominance with a sex ratio of 1.8. The median dialysis vintage is of approximately 30 months in our recipients prior to transplantation, and pediatric transplantation does account for 7% of the total transplants, with a mean age of 13 years. The outcome is also interestingly good, with a graft survival of 80% at 20 years and patient survival of 90% at 20 years, which is very encouraging. Now let's get to the donors. Our activity and our transplant program is mainly based on the living donor, and which is in fact an excellent therapeutic option. It enables us to start our transplant activity, as it is the case in several countries of the region. It accounts for more than 90% of the kidney donors, but it is not the solution because the activity remains largely below our expectation, as we said earlier. And when we report our numbers to international registries, for example, the IRDAT, we see that with a rate of 1.3 per million population, we do stand really far in the rankings, as you see. So our donors, living donors, are also young, generally, with a mean age of 43 and a female predominance, which is quite different from the male predominance in the recipient that we see in the previous slides. Now, there is a notion that is quite preoccupying, is the number of donors that are lost to follow-up. The mean follow-up duration is around 4.8, but then 80% of the donors will be lost to follow-up to some extent during the period. And here's the diagram that shows the organ procurement from brain-dead donors. As you see, the activity has started in 2010, and it did peak in 2014 and 2015 because of the enthusiasm and the efforts of our national experts, our national society, along with the Ministry of Health. Here is the circular of our Ministry of Health and Social Protection that specifies the allocation criteria of kidney transplants from brain-dead donors. And we have a score that was made by our national experts. It takes into consideration the waiting time by days, the HLA matching, the ABO groups, and also the age gap between the donor and the recipient. Here is an example of our national list, waiting list for transplantation for patients from brain-dead donors. It is held by our ministry. So we know that cadaveric donor, or rather brain-dead donors, is a key solution to our national program, and we're aware that it does require a strong coordination, accurate budgeting, and rising awareness in the population in order to achieve the goals. But let me share with you this very interesting estimation that was conducted by our national experts regarding the cumulative benefits of transplantation compared to hemodialysis in a university hospital. We see here that starting from the third year, one transplantation can produce a real benefit in terms of saving money compared to hemodialysis. And this benefit is obvious in the 10th year. We see it's get to 1 million dirhams that is saved. When we see that this annual activity of 50 transplants does produce a benefit at 10 years of 47 million dirhams, and a target activity of 100 transplants per year does correspond to 95 million dirhams of benefits at 10 years. This is very, very interesting as results. So with that being said, what are the main issues and challenges that are confronting our national program? There have been a lot of surveys and studies in order to understand the obstacles. And let me tell you that they are multifactorial with institutional, medical, and practical constraints and hurdles. To summarize the constraints to living donation, there is the insufficient information on kidney replacement therapy in general, and particularly the kidney transplant, with the lack of obligation to inform the patient when he or she do agree to start a dialysis program. The lack of awareness on organ donation. We only spread the word about the technique twice a week and celebrations of organ donation and transplantation. The main constraint is also that the donor who is not considered to be a patient, not considered to be ill, is not covered systematically for the pre-transplant workup. And most of the time, the extra hospital pre-transplant workup is borne by the recipient. And in general, our patient do only have one donor most of the times. So when he or she are deemed not to be eligible for the donation, then the patient sees his project of transplantation vanishing over time. What about the brain dead donation obstacles. Here is a real life situation from the University Hospital of Casablanca, in which from 250 potential organ donors, the team got 212 refusals, 4 disagreements among the family members, one patient who did not have a family who could state his position regarding donation during his lifetime, and 6 cardiac arrests while the team was awaiting for the family agreements, and only at last 27 agreements out of 250. The reason for these refusals is that mainly the misinterpretation of religion. Many people are not sure whether Islam does authorize donation, the fear of organ trafficking, although our national authorities do ensure that currently there is no such a thing in our country, luckily. There is the fear of mutilation of the body during the procurement, the fear of not recovering the body of the deceased for burial quickly, and they suspect also some poor care in the emergency departments. Other studies, more recent, they show that the main reason is the lack of information, the wrong perceptions, and the lack of awareness. Then what are the proposed actions that we can use to expand the current capacity of our kidney transplantation programs? We do believe, in fact, that the government should be committed to the development of transplantation in our country. This is a real condition to improve the situation, creating budget lines to finance all actions of donation and transplantation, and also various regulatory agencies to reinforce the transplant teams with qualified personnel and to improve the information about transplantation by continuous awareness raising throughout the year, to prioritize the child transplantation and potentiate the benefits of kidney transplants by a better management of comorbidities such as viral hepatitis, anemia, and so on in dialysis patients. There's also a proposition in Morocco to allow the in-laws to donate in order to expand the pool and the source of living donors. And why not to develop ABO-incompatible kidney transplants? The mandatory declaration of brain-dead patients in all ICUs in university hospitals, and to value all actors involved in the donation and improve access to emergency departments and creation of several trauma centers across the kingdom. At the end, I would say that we are aware that our program, our national program, is weak, but luckily persistent, mainly based on the living donation, the brain-dead donation being not enough, but there is a multidisciplinary team expertise that is well established. Last but not least, let me remind you that this is not just advanced medicine, but it's a society project that is founded on solidarity to save lives and cannot be achieved without donations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good.
Thank you very much. I think we can move to the next presenter, please. Moderator.
Professor Abdurrahim, can you introduce the next speaker?
Thank you very much. It's in my pleasure and honor to be a part of this event. I'm really delighted to moderate this webinar with the Professor Hani Hafiz and Professor Ines Dawet. At first, I have to thank Afran Transplant Committee for its commitment to spread scientific knowledge on the aim to promote kidney transplant activity in our region. Without further delay, I have to introduce our second speaker, Professor Soumeya Missoum, who will give us a talk on kidney transplantation in Algeria. Professor Missoum is the head of the Department of Nephrology, Dialysis and Transplantation at Batna University Hospital. She also serves as Vice President of the Algerian Society of Organ Transplantation and as expert with the Algerian Agency for Transplants. Professor Missoum, please, I ask you to start your talk.
Yes.
Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, Algeria is a French-speaking country, so please excuse my bad English. It's an honor to speak to you today about the history of kidney transplantation in my country. So the first kidney transplantation was performed in 1986 by an exclusively Algerian team that of Professor Hossein Chaouch, who was formed by Strasbourg in France. And since Algeria counts 3,750 kidney transplants, almost all from living related donor. However, Algerian law authorized donation between spouses in 2010. Today, we have 14 approved centers across the national territory. I work in the first Algerian center, which has been the first Maghreb center since 2018. The first kidney transplantation from a branded donor was performed in 22, and since only 3 experiments we have been realized despite a favorable law and fatwa and the motivation of association and the ministry. We hope to benefit from the experience of our Tunisian and Moroccan brother, with whom we share the same culture and religion. And why not create a Maghreb of even better African register? The first pediatric kidney transplantation was performed in 2007, and since Algeria counts 178 pediatric kidney transplantation. We have developed a technique to save and quickly enlarge the abdomen of infants using peritoneal dialysis to access transplantation very early, which allow us to transplant a child 30 months old and weighs 10 kilos from an adult donor. Furthermore, the cross donation was authorized in 2014, and the kidney transplantation in hyperimmunized patients in 2016, and the kidney transplantation in patient with neurological bladder in 2021. But despite the 30 kidney transplantation per year, it remains insufficient. It is in the face of growing demand. Indeed, in Algeria, the transplant program has positive and negative points. The positive one, that the national program supported by the authority and free care, including all medication, it's free in Algeria. And the negative points are an activity based mainly on the voluntary work of a few teams. It's very hard to work in this condition, and the opposition of the population of the cadaveric or brain-dead donation. Despite of Law Algeria, fatwa, and numerous awareness campaigns. So in the perspective in Algeria, we try to introduce artificial intelligence to kidney transplantation, which could make a giant step in pediatric transplantation, particularly in infants. We want to transplant more children, more infants for access in transplantation. So Algeria see the future in the South-South collaboration. It's very important for the nephrology, for the Algerian nephrology. And the first step was taken with our Mauritanian brother. It is in good experience, and the future is for Africa. I will end up inviting you to the Business Congress in October, and you are welcome. Thank you for attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sam. And we can move to the next speaker before discussion. It will be Dr. Basha.
Can you see my slides, please?
Yes, yes.
Dr. Lawad, you have to introduce Dr. Basha before beginning.
Your
Hello.
mic, please, Professor Lawed.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. First, I would like to thank the organizing committee for their invitation. I'm very honored, and it's a great pleasure for me to introduce my colleague, Mohammed Monji Basha, who is a nephrologist practicing at kidney unit of the Department of Nephrology at Charles Nicolle Hospital in Tunisia. He is also an cited professor of nephrology at the Faculty of Medicine of Tunis. Professor Basha is the vice president of the Tunisian Society of Nephrology, Dialysis and Kidney Transplantation. He's a member of the Scientific Council of the National Center for the Promotion of Organ Transplantation in Tunisia, and he is the chair of the African Association of Nephrology Transplant Committee. Professor Basha is graduated in pediatric nephrology and an organ transplantation from René Descartes University in Paris, and is graduated too of medical pedagogy and management of health services in Tunisia. So please, Professor Basha, can you share with us the Tunisian experience in organ transplantation?
Thank you very much, Professor Lawed. Good afternoon, everyone. First, I would like to extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Gamal Saadi and Dr. Mariam Khabar, the coordinators of the webinar subcommittee in our Afran Transplant Committee, for their outstanding efforts in organizing this webinar series. I'm honored by their invitation to speak about the current situation and challenges of transplantation in Tunisia. I would like also to take this opportunity to invite you to the upcoming Afran Congress scheduled to be held in Tunis from April 15 to 18, 2025, and organized by the Tunisian Society of Nephrology, Dialysis and Renal Transplantation. We are diligently preparing an excellent scientific program for you. As you know, Tunisia is a country located in Northern Africa. It encompasses 163,000 square kilometers and has a population of 12 million people. A dialysis program for patients with end-stage renal disease was launched in 1976, but was limited for many years to the capital city of Tunis and 3 other major cities. The treatment is provided at no cost to the patient by the Ministry of Health or through social security funds without any restrictive policy. The program has expanded, and currently there is a large network of dialysis centers throughout the country, serving about 13,000 patients. We estimate that 1/3 of patients in dialysis in our country would be transplantable. First organ transplant and tissue graft have been made in 1948 for the cornea, in 1986 and 87 for the kidney, in 1993 for the heart and for simultaneous kidney and pancreas, in 1998 for the liver and for the bone marrow, in 2002 for cancellous bone and for the amniotic membrane, in 2005 for simultaneous kidney and liver, and in 2013 for the lung. Before June 1986, about 120 Tunisians with end-stage renal disease received the kidney transplant abroad, mainly in France. The Tunisian government and social funds covered the cost of these transplants and all related expenses. The Tunisian kidney transplant activity started in June 4, 1986, at Charnikol Hospital in the capital city of Tunis from a living-related donor. The initiation of this program was a collaborative initiative of different medical teams at Charnikol Hospital without a suitable legal status enabling such a therapeutic procedure. 1 year later, the first kidney transplant from a deceased donor took place also in Charnikol Hospital. Organ procurement was done by Professor Ridam Zabi, a general surgery specialist. Tunisia is thus considered to be among the pioneer Arab, Muslim, and African countries in kidney transplant using deceased donors. The official Tunisian Islamic Authority supports this activity. This position is based on the Quran verses and Prophet sayings and the position of other prestigious academies or personalities in the Muslim world. Since 1991, many government measures were adopted, including the establishment of a legislative framework that sets rules and standards concerning brain death and human organ transplant. The creation in 1995 of a national organizational system to oversee and promote organ donation and transplant, the National Center for Promotion of Organ Transplantation, CNPTO. Its activity started in January 1998. CNPTO proposed practical procedures for removal, preservation, transport, and transplantation of human organs. Promote organ donation, inform and raise public awareness in collaboration with relevant associations. Participate in the training of medical and paramedical staff involved in organ transplantation. Manage national organ and tissue waiting lists. Manage a tissue bank. And finally, allocate transplants. Since 1999, the law 99/18 permits people to choose to be an organ donor after the death and to mention this on national identity card. Organ transplant and immunosuppressive therapy are provided at no cost to the patient by social funds or by the government. A fund financed from the payment of the cost of dialysis session was created to support transplantation activities. It's very important to note that financial compensation for organ donation is strictly prohibited. Except for corneal graft, public hospitals are exclusively authorized to organ procurement and transplantation after authorization by the Minister of Health. Actually, 22 hospitals are authorized to perform human organ and tissues procurement. 4 hospitals are authorized to perform only human tissues procurement. 24 hospitals are authorized to perform human organ transplantation and tissue grafts. Currently, we have 6 active kidney transplant teams distributed in the different regions of our country. Between 1986 and 2023, there had been 2,184 kidney transplants performed in Tunisia, and about 80% were performed from living donors. Organizational and legislative approaches, along with participation of different medical teams, have resulted in a progressive increase in the number of kidney transplants. Unfortunately, the number of transplants fails to respond to the growing need. Due to the political and economic problems secondary to the revolution of 2010, then COVID-19 activity has decreased enormously. In 2022 and 2023, activity is increasing with the rise of procurement from deceased donors. As everywhere in the world, COVID-19 negatively impacted kidney transplantation activity. In our center, prevalence of SARS-CoV-2 infection in kidney transplant patients was 9.6%, and mortality rate among infected patients was very high, about 25%. Many factors could limit access of patients to kidney transplant, including the under-declaration of brain death, leading to the loss of more than 75% of potential donors. From the beginning of the activity, 260 multi-organ procurement have been made. In the last year, 16 multi-organ procurement was made, providing 14 organ transplantation. This activity is still low, not exceeding a rate of 1.58 reached in 2022. The under-declaration of brain death related to the fact that a large proportion of physicians are indifferent to organ donation and the high proportion of family refusal of organ donation. In a recent study, families justify their opposition by decision-making difficulty in place of the deceased donor, no conviction, no trust in the health system, refusal of the concept of brain death, and religion. Other barriers are shortcomings of declaration of potential donor, diagnosis and management of brain death, and communication with families. Kidneys from deceased donor in Tunisia can only be allocated to patients on the waiting list. This allocation is made using a local software application. At the end of 2023, 1,502 patients were on waiting list, and during 2023, 91 patients were registered in this list. Unfortunately, whereas more than one-third of patients receiving dialysis could receive a transplant, only 10% of these patients are on wait list to receive a kidney from a deceased donor. With regard to the results of renal transplantation in Tunisia, I have chosen to tell you about a single study published by my team by Professor Azzin Abdelrahim Maimontif. The aim of this study was to report the result of 30 years of experience at Charles Nicolle Hospital, the first kidney transplant center in Tunisia, at which 42% of all kidney transplants performed in our country have taken place. A total of 702 kidney transplants were performed during the study period. The mean age of recipients was 32.7 years, with a gender ratio of 2.2. Duration of pre-kidney transplant dialysis varied from 2 months to 20 years. 1.7% of patients underwent transplant preemptively. Kidneys were recovered from deceased donor in 21% of cases and from living donor in 78%. The proportion of deceased donor dropped significantly from 27% during the period 2010 to 12% during the period 2011-2015. It's important to note that 17 African patients were transplanted in our center during the study period from living-related donors. Patient and graft survival rates were similar to those reported in literature. The satisfactory early and late patient and graft survival rates observed in our study could be explained first by the fact that more than 80% of recipients received the kidney from donors with less than 3 HLA mismatches. This could be related to our policy concerning kidney allocation from deceased donor based on HLA matching and the dominance of living-related donor. Second, in addition, the fact that most of our patients are young, are without comorbidities, and are receiving kidneys from young living-related donor have contributed to this result. We can also speculate that providing immunosuppressive therapy free of cost helps to limit the graft loss that can result from poor medication adherence related to limited financial resources. Finally, although there are the necessary legal texts that regulate organ transplant in Tunisia, according to international recommendations, the number of kidney transplants being performed in our country remains suboptimal, mainly due to organ shortage. Current strategies in Tunisia to increase donor pools include, as you can see in green here, expanding the family circle to distantly living-related donors, altruistic donors, and acceptance of kidneys from marginal deceased donors. Further strategies planned are, in orange color here, procurement from no-heart beating donors, paired exchange program, and ABO-incompatible donors. Commercial transplantation is, of course, completely prohibited in my country. To ensure their success, such strategies should accommodate international recommendation and local resources, and also take into account cultural issues. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Professor Munjif Basha, for the nice talk. I think we are going to continue with the next speaker.
Thank you very much. It is my honor to present Professor Abdel Hafiz Shibani, a dear friend, currently holding a consultant in nephrology position at Tripoli Central Hospital, qualified from Tripoli University in 1983, and received MSc degree at University College of Dublin, research, trained in St. Vincent Hospital in Dublin and St. James Hospital in Dublin, consultant nephrologist to the organ transplantation program in Central Hospital Tripoli, director of the organ transplant program of Libya based in Central Hospital Tripoli 2004-2006, the Libyan representative to the Arab Society of Nephrology, and the past General Secretary of the Arab Society of Nephrology till 2019, past North Africa Council member in Mizot, and currently appointed as the President of Libyan Society of Nephrology and Transplantation in 2023. Professor Abdel Hafiz Shibani, please.
Thank you very much, Professor Hani, for the introduction. I'm very honored to be among my colleagues. It's really a great chance to listen to our colleagues in the different countries in North Africa. This is a chance to talk about Libya. Libya is not well known among our colleagues, nephrologists in the Arab world. So this is a chance to talk about my country. My talk will be I will be talking briefly about the history of kidney transplantation in Libya, then our transplantation program, and then we'll be talking about the general results, future plans, and the conclusion. So as all we know that Libya is a huge country. Total Libyan population is around 7 million. If you compare the population to the country, is very big difference. We have more than 6,000 patients on regular dialysis. We have 102 centers for hemodialysis, and we have more than 2,200 transplanted patients. Only 527 out of these 2,200 transplanted in Libya. So you are talking about 1/4, 527 transplanted in Libya. And we have only one center, which is in Tripoli Central Hospital. This is Tripoli, and I wish you will come there one day in a meeting that we can.
Can you share your screen, please?
Is it not shared? Can you see my slides?
No.
No.
You're not seeing my slides?
No, we don't.
No.
So I'll go back again and try to. Oh, this is the problem which I'm trying to avoid. Go back again. Join. Okay, can you see my slides now?
Not yet.
Okay, just the slide.
Yes.
Can you
Yes,
see it now?
yes, now, yes, now.
Yes.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I'm very sorry. So I'll start
No,
again.
it's okay.
I'm
Go
sure you
on,
hear
please,
what
go
I
on.
said. So I go on. So I just said these numbers and figures about the total population and the dialysis patient, the transplanted patient in general. They are only 2,200. Only a quarter of them has been transplanted in Libya. This is a picture of Tripoli that I wish one day you come and visit it, inshallah. So the program started when we have noticed that many Libyan patients are traveling abroad for kidney transplant, and they are not on their own expenses. They're not well followed up because we are not prepared for that. So this is the idea comes in the Ministry of Health to start our Libyan transplantation program. So we started the regulation and legislation approved in 1989. The religion acceptance was approved in 1989 as well. Cultural reaction is still, we are struggling. Many people they don't want to donate kidneys. They prefer to go abroad and buy a kidney, commercial transplantation. The transplant program, skill transfer, we thought that bringing somebody expert like a transplant surgeon or the whole team coming to Libya and stay with us for a few years, that this is the best idea of teaching and learning the transplantation process. We still have economic burden, and there are other hidden factors. We might talk about them later on. So this is the central hospital in Tripoli. It's very old, 1910. It was built by the Italian colony at that time. The incidence of chronic kidney disease is increasing and doubling. We have a study done in 2008. It showed that we have 2,357 patients on dialysis. After 8 years, we noticed that the number has been doubled, and now the last figures is that we have 6,000 patients. You see, the number is increasing. This is a study done by Professor Rashad Barsoum, Allah yarhamah. He died a few years ago, maybe 1 or 2 years ago. And has been published in the Kidney International Supplement, and showed that Libya, the incidence is low comparing to Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, or Morocco, and the prevalence is low as well. So this study was showing that maybe needs to be evaluated later on. Now, the income was higher. If you see the Libyan and the second line, GNI is higher comparing to the other countries. So nephrology services started in North Africa. You see Algeria, Morocco, Libya. This is published by Aziz Al-Matri in Nephrolog 2013. And it showed that Libya late in starting nephrology services, like the dialysis started 1979 comparing to other countries. Biopsy taking was only 2005. So we are lagging behind our neighbor countries. So talking back again about the history of kidney transplantation in Libya, we have two phases. The first phase was from 1987 to 1997, started in a hospital called Al Zahra Hospital, which is 30 kilometers away from Tripoli, in which 63 living-related kidney transplantation done with the help of a Polish team. We invited a transplantation team from Poland, and they stayed for a few years. And at that time, we just transplanted 63 cases in 10 years. And then we have the American embargo on Libya, and everything stopped. Then the second phase started 2004 until now, after 9 years of the first phase. A new national transplantation program was launched again in Tripoli Central Hospital, and up to now we have 527 patients. We have also liver transplanted, started for a few months or 1.5 years, in which we transplanted 21 liver transplant. This was done by help of surgeon came abroad. Now we signed this organ trafficking and transplant tourism and commercialism. So Libya was included in that. Selection protocols for the transplants is like any other selection protocol in any other countries. We don't accept only a relative, because always there's the concept of money or something. So we only accept families or very proven relatives. We are using Luminex technique in the immunology lab, in our immunology lab. The serology-based complement-dependent cytotoxicity assay has been replaced by the Luminex technique for the last 50 transplanted kidney cases. The immunosuppression protocol was consisted of triple therapy like anywhere else: steroids, tacrolimus, cyclosporine sometimes, and MMF. We use basiliximab, Simulect as an induction therapy for everybody, even for the non-risky patient. We're trying to give a very good impression about our transplantation program. Prophylaxis against cytomegalovirus was given for many patients. Then we stopped doing that unless the patient has been infected because of the cost of the treatment. Steroids has been potentially a side effect, so we decided to withdraw steroids in the first 30 days and then carry on just trying to give a new impression that we have a new idea to avoid complication of steroids, but that was at the risk of occurring of acute rejection. So after that, we decided to give a small dose for the long-term benefit. The graft survival was okay. In order to get a good results, we encourage our early CKD patient for transplantation, and to improve the short and long-term outcome, we try to avoid some of the most factors that might disagree with our results. So we decided not to take any ABO incompatibility or very high PRA, or patients with difficult vascular problems, many surgical techniques. Libya has been published few results, 2006, that was in the Experimental and Clinical Transplantation Journal, in which this is the first year in which we transplanted 50 patients. Then we have another publication, Saudi Journal of Kidney Disease, 2008, and then at that time we have transplanted 135 patients. So the current situation showed that from 2004 to 2024, it has been, as the graph showed, 2004 we have 9 patients, and then 2005 we have 58. And then the Arabic Spring come in 2011, in which the transplantation program dropped. That's why we're not calling it Arabic Spring anymore. And then we start to gather ourselves and restart again, since we have the personnel, we have the equipment, we have the program. We still carry on until this year, we have only 10 transplanted patients. Male to female ratio, usually males have the highest trend. You can see from 2004 and 2023, always males are higher in number than females. This gender disparity in living kidney donation, we thought that Libya is different, as we have more males donating than females. Maybe males are preferred to be the first option, and females donation might be an obstacle to their future marriage, because we have to ask the permission of the husband. Married women need the consent of their husband, and fear of that might interfere with the pregnancy. This is just their concept. Usually we have the highest number was from brother to brother or sister to brother. This is the relationship of the donor to the recipients. The recipient management and follow-up, the duration of hospital stay for the donors was 4 to 6 days, with the main stay of 4.5 days. And the recipient, it was 8 to 24 days, according to the accommodation of the graft within the body. Kidney function at the time of discharge was acceptable, and serum creatinine values from 1.1 plus minus 0.5 milligram. Last follow-up, all donors were in excellent health and back to their normal life. Donors, this is the hidden side that we usually sometimes don't see them. They don't come to us. In our series, none of donors develop any renal problems post-nephrectomy, but we don't see them. We have to look for them and encourage them to come and check their health, kidney function, at least every 6 months. The results in general, recipients weekly regular visits for routine investigation, including drug level, graft ultrasound during the first month, and then monthly afterwards. any sudden change of their renal profile would subject them to further investigation, including kidney biopsy. Some results of the kidney biopsy from our transplanted patient from 2012, 2014, acute cellular rejection was 4%, acute calcineurin toxicity was 8%, chronic CNI toxicity 16%, antibody-mediated rejection 14%, and recurrent of FSGS 2%, and oxalate crystal deposition 2%. Some of them are transplanted abroad, so they don't follow the exact preparation of the patient. Future plans, strengthening our immunology workup, like adding the flow cytometry in our cross-matching, upgrade kidney transplantation with patients, especially who have ABO incompatibility, a plan to focus on the expansion of available pool of organ donation beside the emotion-related living donors. The obstacle, I think we are all the same. Especially Libyan, they prefer to go abroad for commercial transplantation. They have the money, and they don't want to. They think they are sacrificing their relative when they take a kidney from them. So we try to explain to them that nothing will happen to them. See the results. So this is one of them. The major obstacle is they are still thinking of going abroad. Other problems that the government is not giving enough attention to our work and our program. So sometimes we have disruption of the supply of medication, immunosuppressive drugs. I think this is my conclusion. The National Organ Transplantation Program in Libya relatively started late and still facing a lot of challenges, which I mentioned earlier on. Commercial transplantation is still a real threat to the program. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Shaybani, for this outstanding talk. And especially in the last slides, you stressed the problem of commercial transplantation, which is a declaration of Istanbul Group issue, the ICG, which is very important to be addressed in Africa and followed in our next Afran Congress. We will have a special session in Tunisia about the DICG and how to implement the ethical aspect of transplantation in the continent. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really, I have the privilege to introduce Professor Gamal, or Jamal in Tunisia, Professor Gamal Saadi, who will talk about the Egyptian experience in kidney transplantation. Professor Gamal Saadi is the head of the Department of Internal Medicine and Nephrology at Cairo University. He is well known to the African kidney transplantation community since he is the founder and the current president of the African Society of Organ Transplantation. He is the president of the Egyptian Transplant Society, and he served as the president of the International Federation of Kidney Foundation. Dr. Gamal, go ahead for your talk.
Thank you very much for your very kind introduction. I think you can see my screen and hear me well.
Yes.
Actually, it's a great honor and a great pleasure to be among this Afran transplantation chapter. And we are privileged to have Professor Hani Hafiz as our leadership, and the transplantation chapter with the leadership of Dr. Ebon Bamboy and Dr. Mongi Basha. And I am pleased to be caring for the webinar subcommittee with Professor Intisar Hadiyah. Actually, I failed to join with the link sent to me, and Professor Mongi has sent me a special elegant invitation link, and I'm using his site, but he looks much more handsome than me for the recording, to be mentioned. Actually, I am going to discuss the approach to resolve transplantation challenges in Egypt. And as you all are aware, that CKD is prevalent worldwide, and in Africa, it might be even more than the 10% recorded worldwide. and the patient on dialysis are expected to be exponentially increasing. This slide shows the recorded death rates from kidney diseases worldwide, and you can see that it is higher in the African continent and more in the eastern and northern parts of Africa. It's an important leading cause of death. Worldwide access to treatment for end-stage renal disease is represented in this figure, and you can notice that in Egypt, the access to treatment of end-stage is almost 100% of the patients who are diagnosed with end-stage have a facility to be dialyzed. And the number of dialysis patients ranges from 60 to 70,000 yearly, varying with the rate of patients who are incoming, new de novo patients, or patients who die, or those who are transplanted. Professor Abdelhafiz Shaibani has referred to this important paper by Professor Rashad Barsoum, and it demonstrates the prevalence of CKD to be around 650 per million population. So we have around 65,000 patients on regular dialysis treatment. And the incidence is around 192 per million population, and the difference from the CKD patients on dialysis represents almost the death rate among the dialysis population. Since the early transplantation performed in Boston in 1954, and it is well noticed that transplantation is the best outcome for patients on having end-stage renal disease, and much preferable than those who are maintained on regular dialysis treatment. And not only the survival rate, but it is more important concerning the quality of life. Transplantation in Egypt started in March 1976 in Al Mansoura Hospital, and it was followed 6 months later by the first case in Asr Al Aini, Cairo University. And the percentage of transplantation from the general patients on regular dialysis treatment represent 1.5%, and we almost transplant 1,000 to 1,500 kidneys per year, and almost around 400 liver transplantations per year. We have almost 31 kidney transplant centers, 16 liver transplant centers, and 6 bone marrow transplant centers. And those who are performing both kidney and liver are around 14 centers. The patients who are maintained on dialysis and transplanted are increasing, but the increase in the number of transplantation is not facing the exponential rise in patients who are on dialysis, and probably the waiting list is increasing. The sources of donors, as you are all aware, is either from living or deceased donation. But the problem is that in Egypt, we don't have diseased transplantation. In spite of issuing the law in March 2010, which allows the transplantation from dead patients who have given their approval during their life. But since then, from 2010 up till now, we couldn't start a transplantation from disease donation program. We are facing another problem among the amendment, which we are looking for its amendment, which is the living donation is not allowed from relatives who are exceeding 60 years of age. And this is a great problem we are trying to amend in spite of the old guidelines excluding the age as a limit for organ donation. And this slide shows the demonstration how we can have good results from donors who are above 70 and even up to age of 85. And I like to present this slide very much which represents an 84-year-old Texas man who donated his neighbor, who was a 72-year-old neighbor. And I think we should work hard in Egypt to amend this living donation issue. Almost 50% of the living donation is related and 50% is unrelated. The outcome of adult kidney transplantation, whether as graft survival or patient survival, is matching with the international figures, and the patients who are maintained on tacrolimus-based triple therapy have a 10-year graft survival of more than 80%. Also, the outcome in children has been also published by our colleagues from Abu Rish Pediatric Transplantation Unit in Cairo University, and the 10-year cumulative survival, patient survival, is almost around 90%. And the transplantation rate of pediatrics reaches about 40 to 50 per year for children below 14 years of age, and would reach around 200 patients per year for ages below 18 years. The graft survival, the 10-year graft survival is almost satisfactory, which reaches 74% by 10 years. We have an additional important issue of having combined liver and kidney transplantation to children, particularly children with who have special disorders, metabolic disorders, whether as primary hyperoxaluria or hemolytic uremic syndrome, and we perform either combined or sequential or liver and kidney transplantation. The main issue to initiate a cadaveric program is facing several problems. Some consider that it's a cultural effect, where since ancient Egyptians used to preserve their dead bodies by mummification, to preserve the bodies or the corpses for the soul to recognize it, to return to it again. And when they performed removal of the organs, they used to keep them in pots, special pots, for the renovation of the corpse, but not to donate. And preserving the corpse even for a single person by performing such great pyramids is not the main issue. Actually, we have went through a trial of initiation of the cadaveric program in 1992, and it was performed from two deceased cadavers from two executed prisoners. And we had the approval that by that time from the Attorney General, but it had a very bad impact on the social and media effects, and it was abandoned later on. And since then, cadaveric program was withheld, and even for the cornea, it's not yet allowed. The law has been initiated in 2010, but the main issue is that we have opposition to the principle of brain death diagnosis and diseasing organs, and this opposition has been tackled by several aspects. And the encouragement of donation after announcement of death has been greatly approached by our late professor Abdul Manan Hasaballah, who tried to consider that the definition of death and organ donation is not an religious issue at all. This very important paper by Shireen Hamdi tackles the exact issue, that it is a problem of the diagnosis of death by the physicians or doctors believe that brain death is or brain dead case is not quite dead, and the diagnosis is not very accurate. And this represents a misdiagnosis of the problem as one about religious extremism or civilization clash, which is not the situation. And determining death in terms of brain function are contested by Egyptian doctors, basically, or some of them. And this led to the suspension of the cadaveric procurement program for over 30 years. Another issue is that it is not a problem of religious constraints at all. And in spite of that, there are some religious figures which still abandon this idea. But the actual question that troubled medical practitioners and legislators is that if cadaveric program is started, could we ensure protection for vulnerable people and equitable distribution of organs and fair access to the treatment would be allowed. And they were afraid of a slippery course if this program is started. But this is very strange that this can be very simply organized by the government itself. So it's not a problem of religious constraints. It's not an issue of legislation. We have the law since 2010. It's not really a cultural problem. It might be a problem of awareness and mistrust, and awareness basically to the physicians, particularly the internists. This is another important paper or study performed by Metwalli in Egypt, and it about the consideration of willingness to donate after brain death, and this among the community. And this was performed in more than 2,700 participants, and the participants were from the Egyptian Liver Hospital at the Khaleh Governorate and the National Research Center and Giza Governorate. And actually, the willingness to donate before giving the awareness reached about 47%. And I always argue that I would only require 1%, not 47%. And 1% of the Egyptian population, which is more than 100 million, would give me a potential of $1 million. But see, this is the 47% acceptance among the general population without having awareness programs. But after giving them the proper idea and evaluation of the diagnosis of brain death, 78% were willing to donate. We are trying to consider since 2014 regulating the living donation program and initiating a brain death diagnosis without disconnection and evaluate the occurrence of circulatory death after the diagnosis of brain death to match with the Maastricht type 4 declaration of death, which might be suitable to initiation of the program in Egypt. But we need to have initiation of the brain death diagnosis initially to allow for tissue typing, viral screening, and so on. Finally, Mr. Chairman, the transplantation is the best treatment for end-stage renal disease. We need to have a lot of the awareness programs. We should implement the diagnosis of brain death and try to encourage the government to allow those who are willing to donate after death to be available in the identity cards, and to avoid procurement of organs from those who already accepted, even if they were diagnosed after circulatory death, if their family still disagrees, to avoid any conflicts, and to have it in only one hospital in the Ministry of Health, and the waiting list to be manipulated by the government to avoid any slippery course. So we should adopt the opt-in disease donation after brain death, and we should have a regulated transplantation practice. And extending the invitation of Professor Mongi, I would invite you to the 3rd AZOT Annual Congress in 2025, which will be 2 weeks after the Tunisia Afran meeting. It will be on the 30th of April and 1st of May 2025 in Cairo. Looking forward to welcome all of you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gamal Saadi, for this nice talk. And we can launch a discussion now. I will ask all speakers regarding the last comment of Dr. Hani regarding commercial transplantation. If they have data available regarding patient, the recipient transplanted abroad, especially for the trend and of proportion of this patient and the course and the outcome of these transplantations, especially in Libya. I think Dr. Abdel Hafid must have many patients followed by him.
I think we can start the discussion.
Yes, you can start.
Yes. So first, thank you to all our speakers for their excellent presentation, which highlighted and focused on the current situation and challenges in transplantation in our continent, in North of Africa. We have some questions, a little ones. So I think some persons ask if they could have these slides and these presentations. If speakers can share their slides with data, with legislative data.
I think it is recorded and I approve to share them.
Okay, thank you. Then I have one question, and I think it's not a question, it's a need of advice from one colleague from Mali who asked, he would like to have contact details of all authors, of all speakers, as long as they are highly involved in kidney transplantation in their respective countries. So he would like to have just contact details of our speakers. One colleague, I think he's from Nigeria, and he is asking, I try to find the question. He is asking which advices can you give to African countries who are starting programs of transplantations? Which advice can you give to to these countries who would like to start a kidney transplantation from deceased donors? Answer to the question.
If you would allow me to answer?
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, please. I think to start a transplantation program, you should be very well equipped and well trained by the personnel and the place itself and the hospitals, and the community should be aware of the transplantation privilege. You should initiate a team including nephrologists, urologists, vascular surgeons, intensivists, anesthetists, a special intensive care nurse, and probably as well special dialysis procedures, including the plasma exchange. You should have also a very well prepared clinical pathology laboratory analysis to analyze the tissue typing, the blood levels, and the general screening for both donors and recipients, including tissue typing, blood grouping, cross matching, donor-specific antibodies, and so on. In addition, you should have a very well established pathology lab to diagnose any graft rejections, any viral infections, and so on. To start this program, you should develop this team training in a specialized center including, for example, Egypt, South Africa, Tunisia, Morocco, those who are ready to train these colleagues. You should start by preparing the patients by living-related transplantation first, and establish this in your country by preparing patients to be transplanted either in the training center, or a team would come to visit your center and transplant in your center. The next step is to try to develop the disease donation program.
Thank you.
I have a question to all speakers.
Yes.
Could we know the first year graft survival and patient survival for each country?
Yes.
I think we could. Yes, we can.
So could everybody tell us?
Yes.
Let's start by Maghreb and Algeria, etc.
Yes, what is the question, please? What was the question?
First year graft survival and patient survival.
Yes.
For your transplant program, yeah.
It's more than 90%. It's more than 95% in the first year for both the patients and the grafts. At 10 years, it's 90%, and 80% at 20 years. Yes.
80% at 20 years is fantastic. Yes. Fantastic. Okay. Algeria. Could we know each country?
If I talk about Libya,
Algeria.
Yes.
Algeria first. Algeria.
Dr. Missoum.
First year graft and patient survival.
At 1 year, at 95%. 95%.
Très bien. Pour les deux, patient et aussi le cadavre?
Non, pour le patient, 100%.
100%.
Pour le greffon, oui.
OK. Merci. Tunisia?
At Tunisia, kidney graft survival is around 90-95%, and graft survival is around 98 or 100%.
Perfect. Libya?
Libya, we are very selective in accepting our patients, so we have very good results. More than 95% for the first 10 years for the graft survival, and more than 90% for the patient survival.
Egypt, Dr. Gamal?
Yes, I presented these graft survivals, Professor Hani, and the graft censored graft survival, which represents the patient survival, is more than 95% as well by first year, and more than 80% by 10 years. And for the children, it is still first year more than 90%, and by 10 years, 80%.
Thank you very much. I'm stressing this question because this shows that in our North Africa area, our results are comparable and even better than many international places. So we should continue our track with confidence, and knowing that our survival and graft survival and patient survival is very, very good. Thank you.
Okay, Professor Antisar?
Yes, I wanted to add to the answer of Professor Gamal about the what should be done and what should be established in order to implement a kidney transplant program. So I think that all that has been said is very accurate, but then I would add raising the awareness about the donation and transplantation, and the national experts involved in the act of transplantation should be close to the decision makers to do some kind of lobbying in order to defend and plead the cause of donation and transplantation. There is an effort that should be made in the emergency departments, as it is the first interface between the patients and the health system, and of course, the quality of care of the patients in the ER does condition the agreement of the family subsequently. There is also another problem that is faced and to which most teams are confronted, is the misinterpretation of or the misconception about religion. And so I guess that we should include religious figures that are well seen, that were well established in the society, in order to explain and to encourage people to donate, because they would explain that this is not contrary to Islam assignments. That was what I wanted to add. Thank you.
Professor Abderrahim.
Voilà.
I return to my question to all speakers regarding commercial transplantation, if they have any data regarding the proportion of such patients transplanted abroad and the outcome of them.
Okay, so all speakers can answer. We're going from Morocco to Egypt.
Yes, from Morocco to Egypt.
From
I would
Morocco
say that this is not really a something very problematic in Morocco. We don't have accurate data regarding this, but this is not something to which we are confronted in our daily practice with our patients. I don't know, there might be something, but it should be really, really minor in the total pool of patients, I guess. Ines, do you have something to add for this?
I think in Morocco, legislation is clear, and we are not afraid about traffic organ or traffic organ in our country. So I think I'm sure there's no traffic organ in Morocco, because the law is clear and legislation is clear, and only university hospitals are allowed to perform kidney transplantation, and other clinicals or private clinicals not. So I think Morocco takes a lot of time to begin a program of transplantations, but during this time, we performed the legislation it was very clear, and in order to protect patients and donors.
I mean the patient, the recipient transplanted abroad, not in Morocco or Algeria or Egypt. Because during the last decades, we have many patients who travel abroad for kidney transplantation with a poor outcome.
Ntisar, I can answer. Yes, we receive some patients who are transplanted not in Morocco. I think during the last 20 years, a lot of them. So we don't have any idea if it was a traffic of organ or just a transplantation which was performed in another country. So we follow a lot of patients who were transplanted out of Morocco, but we cannot be sure about the context of transplantation.
But this is not the majority of our patients. Really minor.
Fortunately, also we don't have many patients that come back from some countries in Asia or other regions of the world. But sometimes, like Morocco, we receive some recipients coming back from some countries, and we follow these patients I think Professor Abdurrahim can have some idea about the exact data. It's not very clear, but I think he collected some data about our patient followed in our department that came from some country and who have taken a kidney graft abroad. Dr. Abdurrahim for Tunisia.
Effectively, in Tunisia, we haven't available data regarding this patient, and we received some 30 patients at maximum who were transplanted in the beginning of 19 at Iraq, India, and Pakistan. And we already received some patients in critical ill situation with early death for these patients.
Okay. There's another answer.
I think we have the highest number of transplantation abroad in Libya. The reasons for that, patients are well funded. They have money. They prefer to go abroad and get transplanted to come back. They don't want to use their families, and they're afraid that this transplantation might affect the health of the relatives. So quite a good number. They're still preferring to go abroad. Now, I think we have to restrict that and make some limitations that we try to improve ourselves to attract them to transplant in our places. Because transplantation is a contract between the patient and the surgeon or the hospital. It's lifelong transplant, lifelong contract. So it's not going abroad and come back after 2 or 3 weeks. You still have to look after this patient. You have to know the background. You have to know tissue typing. You have to know, is he at risk or not? So transplantation is a contract between the patient and the doctor for the whole life. It's lifelong. It's not just 2 weeks. You invite a surgeon to do operation even in your country and going back. No, we should depend on ourselves. I remember I asked Professor Rashad Barsoum for 15 years ago. I asked him, how can we improve our transplantation program? It's new at that time. He said, try to get connected to advanced center and make an agreement between your hospital and this center. Then training will be very well advocated and will reach the highest level. And then you can depend on yourself, at least for 2 years. Connect with a very advanced center, like in Egypt or in other advanced country. Thank you.
Professor Saad Kamal.
Yes, actually, this is a very important issue raised by Professor Abdurrahim. And in Egypt, the law doesn't allow transplantation between different nationalities. It should be the same nationality. Even if they are coming from abroad, they should have the donor and recipient should be of the same nationality. And almost more than 80% of them are related. And even we can get patients from Libya as well, and we can follow them up. More than 100% they are living related, coming from Libya or other Arab countries. But actually the problem is more serious among different African countries, where a lot of patients are traveling to Pakistan, to India or other countries, and they are transplanted there and they return with the follow-up being disturbed, as you just mentioned. It's not a matter of operation and then returning without having full data about the donors and so on. Actually, in Egypt, you might have patients going abroad to get transplantation, among liver transplantation, where they go, for example, to the USA and they are involved in the disease donation program there, and they enter into the waiting list there. So I think this is an acceptable issue because we don't have enough organs for particularly the liver transplantation. So I believe we need to have more regulated programs in our countries involving the government in the process of distribution of the waiting list among the donors if we have an unrelated program, which I hope we could abandon by the disease donation. We are also encouraging to exclude the higher age limit for the living related, because this forces the patient to search for an unrelated donor. Also, we are encouraging a paired kidney donation program, and this should abandon as well any commercialism among the any unrelated.
Thank you, Professor.
If I can extend to the first point of Dr. Antasar, I fully agree with you that it should be a very holistic approach, including the government, the religious and social people as well, and increasing the awareness is very important and crucial among the, particularly the relatives of the patients. I fully agree and support your additional points.
Thank you. We have 3 short questions. First one, I think Professor Gamal answered, is about paired donations. Is there paired donation in our countries, on our North Africa countries? The second short question is, what about results of incompatibility ABO transplantation in our countries? I don't know if other countries perform ABO mismatch transplantations. Yes.
Can I answer in French, please?
Yes, you can.
Merci beaucoup parce que j'ai du mal avec l'anglais. Donc, en Algérie, on a tenté la BO incompatible. Comme vous savez, ça nécessite un matériel extrêmement cher. C'est une lourde intervention. Nous avons tenté pour 2 patients. Malheureusement, ça n'a pas fonctionné. Justement, c'est eux, les 95, les 5% qui ont perdu le greffon. Et je ne pense pas que c'est une expérience qu'on va renouveler. Pas du tout. Tant qu'on n'a pas les colonnes voilà, précise, la technique précise, je pense que c'est un risque à ne pas prendre en tout cas actuellement en Afrique.
Okay, I can translate. So our colleague in Algeria said that they tried the experience of mismatch ABO and it wasn't a success. So they are not going to try it again, because it needs a long preparation before perform transplantations, especially immunoadsorption.
I would add also to this that the countries which performed the ABO now are moving more and more towards these paired donation chains, because the long-term outcome, even in the most sophisticated places who can afford, is not very good on the long term. So they try to shift now for more paired donation chains.
Actually, in Morocco, paired donation is not allowed by our legislation. So what about your countries? We cannot perform it. We cannot do paired transplantations. What about Tunisia, Algeria, Egypt, and Libya?
In Tunisia, we don't do kidney pair donation, but the legal framework that exists don't prohibit this practice in our country. We tried to see last year ago the number of couples of donor and recipients that can be associated to a program of kidney pair donation, and from our country we can see around 40 couples that are agreed to participate to a kidney pair donation program, but we don't have a legal organization and yes, of these patients to participate to such program.
Okay. En Algérie, ça s'est très bien passé. Si je comprends bien, c'est le don croisé.
Exactement.
Donc, c'est l'une des C'est l'une des solutions que nous avons trouvées pour tout ce qui est AB incompatible, pour les problèmes de DSA, etc., pour les hyperimmunisés. Donc, c'est un programme qui marche très, très bien, à condition que ça se fasse au même temps qu'il y a l'anonymat total. Alors, c'est très, très, très important parce qu'on a eu un souci avec un couple qui a appelé le receveur de l'autre couple et qui ça a donné un gros problème politique. Maintenant, il faut aller avec Facebook, etc., il faut être très, très, très prudent. Et justement, c'est ça qui a fait que nous avons diminué au maximum les couples qui partent se faire greffer à l'étranger. Dans les années 90, c'était vraiment 40% des demandeurs de greffe en Algérie. Maintenant, c'est pratiquement 2%. C'est plutôt les patients qui n'ont pas de donneur, les AB incompatibles, etc. Ils partent, et je suis vraiment désolée de le dire, c'est vers des pays où il y a un trafic d'organes. Et il faut le dire clairement. Tout ce qui est Jordanie, tout ce qui est Turquie, c'est un trafic d'organes, il faut le dire. Il faut avoir le courage de le dire. Voilà.
Okay, so our colleague in Algeria said that paired transplantation was the solution for ABO, as said Professor Hafiz, Professor
Oui.
Hafiz from Egypt, as he said. So they have a very good results, but those transplantations should be performed at the same time, exactly at the same time in the hospital, and we should respect anonymity of donors and recipients. So it's the point which is difficult, and so with this, in Algeria they don't have patients or recipients who travel to other countries to get transplanted.
In last 2 or 3 years in Tunisia, we see more and more cases of couples that travel abroad, for example, to Turkey, and are associated to a program of kidney paired donation, but we are not sure of the condition are respected in this country, and how to give organ to recipients.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
I have a question, if you allow me, Professor Lawed.
Of course.
Yes, I have a question for the speakers and also the moderators. Is there a country in which there is altruistic and non-related living donation? Is it practiced somewhere here in the North African region?
No.
No, in Algeria.
In Tunisia, the law permits.
Yes. We have two couple transplanted in Tunis at Chanikol Hospital with good outcome. One donor have a good kidney function without any problem. The other one, I haven't any idea regarding the outcome of this the second donor.
What were their friends? Was it altruistic donation? What was the relationship?
No. We respected complete anonymity for these patients.
Now, what about legislation?
In Tunisia, the law
it's allowed. It's allowed. It's not prohibited. It's not prohibited in Tunisia.
Okay. Yes. And are there any incentives to encourage this kind of donation? Why would a person donate to somebody who's not related? Are there any, do you encourage them somehow, or what about the incentives?
If you allow me, Professor Intisar, to answer you.
I think in our center, we are not encouraged the altruistic donation because in the logistic conditions are not easy to prepare to have kidney graft from this patient with anonymity. It's very difficult to prepare and to do.
Okay. Professor Saidi,
Yes, I think Professor Intisar is putting a very important question about the unrelated living donation. It is allowed in Egypt by the law. It's not prohibited to have altruistic, unrelated donation, but it should be ensured by all methods that it is altruistic. How far can you be sure of this? We can never be 100% sure. That is why we are proceeding, and this can answer the question of Professor Hani Hafiz about initiating a paired kidney donation. So long that unrelated is allowed, putting a national paired kidney donation program could be easily performed if you have an organized waiting list operated by the Ministry of Health itself. We are trying hard to encourage the Ministry of Health to make or perform a regulated living donated program, whether related or unrelated, and putting the incentives you were speaking about, not in money-wise, but probably in giving social recognition, employment priorities, having chances to for having houses or having going for pilgrimage, for example, or having clubs or sport activities allowed for the children and so on. You can have a lot of incentives which are not leading to any currency changes.
I have one question for you. What is the legislation for the transplant program in private hospitals in Egypt? One colleague is asking.
Excuse me, repeat the question again.
Yes, what is the legislation for the transplant program in private hospitals in Egypt?
Actually, the Ministry of Health has a lot of restrictions about the transplantation requirements in any hospital which gets the approval to transplant. It's not in any hospital which would be allowed to transplant, except if it has special prerequisites, including all the facilities, the having the committee to give the approvals and to revise the donor and recipient preparation and ensure the altruistic procedures. I think we have only 31 or 30, between 31 and 35 hospitals. They are increasing or decreasing according to the annual approvals. I think Dr. Hani might add anything as well.
All of these are regulated by the High Committee of Transplantation, which gives the being sure that everything is done in a proper way, and the place to be in which the transplant surgery is performed could be either in a governmental hospital, in a faculty or a university hospital, or in a private hospital, according to the wish of the patient. I mean, but the process of getting the approval from the High Committee is the same for the three places.
I would also add that the Ministry of Health, Professor Hani, requested from any center to give annual data about the patient survival, the preparation, and how many patients were prepared, how many were transplanted, the outcome. And it is the only Ministry of Health which is allowed to give the annual registry of transplantation. And I have been discussing this with Professor Mongi last month or last couple of weeks, that it's not any center who is allowed to give the data even of its own data. It should deliver the registry only to the Ministry of Health.
And to maintain the license, I think they should perform at least 20 kidney transplant per year. Exactly. Otherwise, the license is obsolete.
Yes.
Thank you. Professeur Soumia?
Oui, je voudrais savoir, me renseigner sur le don entre époux. Est-ce que vous avez des conditions? J'ai cru comprendre qu'une année de vie en commun était une condition au Maroc. Qu'en est-il pour les autres pays? Pour nous, en tout cas, c'est 2 ans avec un enfant. On pense qu'un enfant pourrait retenir le mari.
In Tunisia, there is no particular condition about the donation of the husband or the wife. There is no particular condition, but we don't prefer the donation of the husband to his wife because there is we have a dramatic situation with acute humoral rejection in many cases.
Yes.
I think we haven't to add any restriction for kidney donation, since even between relatives, we can exclude any financial benefits.
Okay.
In Libya,
Yes.
we are very strict in allowing donation. Must be a relative or not. So we are very strict. Regarding pay, we prepared a few families, but we haven't done it yet. Going abroad, I think sometimes I see patients coming from neighbor countries and saying we are transplanted in this country. It's very close. It's Egypt. They come to me and they said, I have been transplanted in Egypt. They don't have a donor from Libya. So I have one patient last week. He's going to Egypt and he has been waiting there for the operation, and it happens once upon a time, not regularly. But I just have to mention that.
Our law in Tunisia.
Professor Abdel Hafid, please inform me about the data of that patient, and I will immediately refer all what you send me to the Attorney General, to the Syndicate, and the Ministry of Health to clarify this. Any data which has been referred to me, and Professor Hani knows this very well, that any data we receive about any a patient who received a donor from Egypt, it is completely not allowed, and it should be sent to the for analysis, and any center will be completely abandoned and punished. But I assure you that 100% of the patients from Libya who were transplanted with me were living related.
Okay, great.
And you can send me at which hospital and with which doctor and all the details. I will send this for the Minister of Health, Syndicate, and the Attorney General.
Okay, I don't mind. Once
when
he comes back to me,
and put it on the group, please, because I will follow up, and I'm always very serious about this.
I will tell you about the name of the hospital, but not the name of the patient. Name of the patient.
I know. I need all the details. His passport, and when he was transplanted, and at what hospital, and with which doctor. You should give me full details to analyze it thoroughly. And the date the patient came in, and so on. You should give me full data to refer to the officials.
Okay.
Professor Munji, Basha?
Just about our national law about kidney donation in Tunisia. It's permit to everyone to donate without restriction to anyone, but the scientific committee of CNPTO, our regulatory organizational center, restrict the donation to the family circle of the recipients. It's the condition imposed by the national center. I think that the best way to limit traffic of organ in our countries, in African countries, is to develop our own programs. I think even the program of living donation, deceased donor, and other programs. And I think that we can work together, for example, immunohistopathology laboratory or other laboratories. Other thing, I think that if we start when we start a program in a country, we must start with only one center. It's not very good to start with many centers, because experience not will be very developed.
Okay.
I think we can move now to the concluding remarks.
Yes.
Is the question finished?
Okay. Okay. So you can.
I think it was a very important webinar, and thank you for the moderators and for the speakers. I will summarize some important points. One of the countries that should have been present in the north is Mauritania, which is not with us, and as I understand, they did not start their transplantation program yet. But the 5 countries represented in North Africa are actually 1/3 of the whole transplantation in Africa, because out of the 54 countries of Africa, only around 15 countries are performing transplantation. So tonight we discussed 1/3 of the transplantation of whole Africa, and I expect in the next webinars of the transplantation group you discuss the remaining 2/3. We concluded that the graft survival and the patient survival in our area is very good, more than 90%. We concluded also that most of the ethical aspects are well respected according to the Declaration of Istanbul Custodian Group. And most of the countries have their laws and their legislation and higher committees ensuring that. We also stressed that religion is not an obstacle at all, and it should not be misinterpreted as an obstacle for cadaveric transplantation. And we have also many nearby Islamic countries who are performing cadaveric transplantation since long time. The example, for example, of Iran, of Turkey, of Saudi Arabia, of many countries. So this is not an obstacle at all in regarding the religion, and it is very important to include the religious people in case we have an obstacle for this. The political will is a very important aspect to start a cadaveric program. Also, I would have a suggestion that we may make like a Eurotransplant exchange network between our North African countries. Why not? Because you see there is a Eurotransplant program, for example, in Europe, exchanging organs. So if some countries starting the cadaveric program in like Tunisia, for example, why not to involve Egypt and neighboring countries in such exchange program that again, after that, we could, from Egypt, for example, we can send an organ, maybe a liver or a kidney for Tunisia and vice versa. This could be an idea that could be discussed in the future. Thank you very much. And I got the privilege of having an acceptance for Kidney 360 publication about the transplantation in North Africa. That I hope it will appear in the next few months. And this is a good news for me and for the whole group. Thank you very much.
Congratulations, Professor Hani, for this news. I would like also to thank you all, to thank moderators, to thank speakers, and also to thank all the team of Afghan Transplant Committee, and particularly the webinar subcommittee team with Professor Gamal Saadi, Dr. Mariam Khaddar, for the hard work last month, and we will organize next month many other webinars with scientific topics, but also with overview of kidney transplantation in other regions of Africa. So thank you very much for your participation.
Thank you.
Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.